is, how are you guiding your team right now? I mean, you guys are still doing 50 contacts a week, and I really liked the strategy of trying to weed out some cold prospects from portfolios to see if you could put some new folks in. So, tell me what the situation's going on down at Baylor and across the country.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's definitely been a progression. That first 2 weeks or so, first 2-3 weeks when everything really started to hit, it was very much like, okay, let's get out and get in front of everybody in our portfolios. And so that's where that 50 contacts a week came from, and really stuck pretty close to that for about 3 weeks. And it was the idea behind it was, let's call out to everybody in your portfolio, check in on them, see how they're doing, let them know that, we're moving forward still, things are okay, but also calling out to a lot of current parents that are in our portfolios to make sure, hey, are their students getting the information they need?
Mm-hmm.
Are they doing okay with the shift to online classes? That kind of deal. So it was very much just a stewardship, checking in, touch point type of contact. And really that 50 contacts was really like, we really wanted it to be focused on phone calls if where possible. Some email if it was specific to that person and kind of a specific, but really not mass emails. That was kind of the idea behind that. And so, we did that for a couple of weeks, and then there was a more of a comfort level of starting to share with those folks who were reaching out the President's Excellence Fund, which we were using as a student emergency fund. But it was really more from a storytelling standpoint, like telling them, hey, here's the need, here's how the president's addressing it with her Excellence Fund. But it wasn't necessarily directly asking for them to support it. It was more telling them about it, and then if they brought it up, like, hey, how can I help, then we go in from there. And then it progressed over the next couple of weeks to where we did become a little bit more direct and specifically reaching out to some of our more long-term relationships and asking them specifically to give to the President's Excellence Fund. And then really in the last week or two have opened that up to where we've emailed out to people in our portfolio and been much more direct about asking for support to the President's Excellence Fund. And that is has been coupled with our deans sent out messages to constituents in their different academic areas, asking for them to give to the President's Excellence Fund. Then we sent out some social media and coupled up with Giving Day, all geared towards the Excellence Fund and the student emergency needs. And so it's been where our development officers have been able to stay very busy and keep reaching out. During that process, they've also just been touching base and giving updates on what's happening at the university, and maybe something where the president releases a message and they are forwarding that along just to make sure that that particular donor saw that information. But I will have to say, we are now getting to the point where it's kind of, okay, what's the next focus?
What's next?
We've reached out to these donors 3-4 times. We've now solicited them for a gift for the Excellence Fund. We're getting towards the end of our fiscal year, which ends May 31st. And so it's kind of this interesting little bit of a shift right now where our development officers are starting to ask, okay, what's the next touch point? And so we're have just this week got into that phase. And so I think it's been interesting to see some of our development officers and the way they are continuing to reach out and some of the creative things they're doing. So Josh Lassiter is a good example who you had on a couple weeks ago, but he has created a interview series where he is interviewing various folks across campus and admissions and student life and our parent team and trying to think several other areas where he is getting updates from them and what's happening in their areas and how they are serving students and our alumni and our constituents and what they're doing in their areas. And so he's done those interviews himself and then is sharing those out every other week with everybody in his portfolio. And so that's his way of being able to stay in touch, keep that relationship warm, but and have a reason to reach out to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's providing value. I mean, it's a chat like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you're talking about something that the prospect cares about, in a place they care about very much. But it's from a face that they know and,
Yes.
like, so that's really cool.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of tossing around the idea of how does that maybe become utilized at a higher level where, maybe it's more of a person that's their full-time role that they can interview folks across campus, and we can utilize that not just in his portfolio but across the entire university.
Yeah, like partnering with communications or is there a figurehead that's not the university president, but like it's probably also not the mascot, but somebody in between there, like that's well known, respected, that
Exactly.
can have these conversations and push that out. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I know with the President's Excellence Fund, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, every gift officer has prospects that they know that are engaged, that give, and then they have those like hard to reach ones that have been in the portfolio for 6 months, 9 months, a year, longer. Like, yeah, they probably should be assigned, but it's just been kind of cold. And so you had an interesting strategy of just putting that ask out there, seeing if they would engage. And if they did, great, let's retain them. And if they didn't, let's move them out of the portfolio. How did that go? And how are you moving people through?
Yeah, it's been interesting because we actually pulled some lists to target 2 specific areas, or those very engaged donors that give every year but maybe haven't given yet this year, and kind of those long-term relationships. But then also pull a list of people that we've had multiple contacts with but have either not given at a major gift level or just have not given. And so we did focus on that group, and it's been mixed results. It's been interesting. We have gotten several pretty quite a few we consider major gifts. So for us, it's 50,000 and above. We've gotten several $50,000 gifts, $100,000 gift, a couple 25,000, and then a lot of $5,000 and $10,000 type of gifts from these efforts. And I think what we found is the majority of those have come from those long-term relationships that that they continue to support year after year. We haven't seen a whole lot from those folks that had not really given in the past. There's been a few, but it's not as much as we would have hoped for, at least at this point. But I think we're now getting to that point where it's been a couple weeks since that first push, that first solicitation around the Excellence Fund. And so now the team's going to be going back for the kind of second round and saying, hey, just want to let you know this is still a need, still very important. Here's why. Here's some stories of students that have benefited from those funds, and so it'll be interesting to see if we get any more response that second time around.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this in the webinar with Josh, but also, I mean, you brought it up, like having those stories at hand is so critical. Like just saying, like, here's a fund, and here's the types of needs. Like that's fine. Giving somebody an infographic of how you're using the money, fine. But like when you can really put a face to the need, like that's where I think the magic happens.
Yeah, and it was interesting because we were able to use, when students applied for the funding, they literally had to apply for it. And so we were able to take those blurbs of why they were applying for the funding and use that as our, hey, here's how students are benefiting. And then on the back end, we've done a couple of videos that we've sent as to thank you for those people that did give to the fund. That the video included a thank you from students that received the funding, and they were able to say how they used it. And so it's been a well-rounded effort, but yeah, still need to kind of circle back with some of those that we've had long-term, we've met with multiple times, but they still haven't quite given yet.
Yeah, it's all right. Keep at it. Do you think you'll, like, let's say they still, aren't giving, is that somebody you might cycle out after May 31st and say, like, okay, let's look, who else can we add in to the portfolio?
Yeah, I think so, because the way we messaged it was that it is such an important need that is directly affecting students right now. And so if there's a few cases where people say that may just not be for them, they want to continue to support other areas, but if they haven't given at all and they're not willing to willing to support that, then it's pretty unlikely that they're going to support any other areas. So yeah, I think we will have some movement based on how people responded to that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned you're pushing a lot of things out on social media as well. Are you coaching your team, your gift officers to look at, if their assigned prospects are engaging on social, or using that as a way to maybe try to open up new conversations?
Honestly not as much as we should there. I think the social media that's gone out has been primarily from our annual giving team, and our parent engagement team. But I would say that at this point, we haven't utilized that as well as far as like cross-referencing that and sending that back out to the DOs and how they may have responded to those, commenting on the social media. Now they may be doing that on their own through Evertrue, but we haven't directed that from a management perspective.
That's all right. Right when we're done here, we can.
I know that's what I'm about to do is tell me. I'm like, hey, that's actually, man, that's good stuff.
I'll make a little video, send you a link, pass it out to your
right.
team, you'll be good to go. It's a great way to prioritize, as you go towards the end of the year, because it's crunch time. Thank you for taking the time. It's May, what is it? 12th. So, 19 more days in the fiscal year. So It's time to prioritize. I know you're doing, just like everybody, tons of virtual visits and things like that. And you're thinking about metrics, what's going to stick for fiscal year 21? Are you still going to be doing virtual visits for donors that want to? Are there any goals associated with that? What does that look like for Baylor?
Yeah, we're actually talking through that right now. This week, actually, we started looking at goals for this next year, and what we're talking about right now is that we'll probably have a little bit, almost like a separate set, or for the first quarter. We know that it's going to be, at least the first quarter, a little bit different than it will be the rest of the year if we're able to start traveling again. But yes, we will be incorporating virtual visits in an ongoing basis. And what we're looking at is kind of having a range of, so typically our total visits for a year, about 180 visits, personal visits per year for development officer.
And that's all face-to-face? All
face-to-face. And so as we look at these virtual visits, saying that you can have between 20 to 40% of your personal visits can be virtual visits. And so we haven't landed on the exact number, the exact range yet, but the idea is we do want our development officers to utilize virtual visits, incorporate that as a tool, but we also don't want it to become a crutch where they only do virtual visits. And so, because we know that the face-to-face is still very important. So trying to find that balance of where's a good mix of, hey, you're still utilizing it, but not overutilizing it. And, we're kind of looking at that 20 to 40% range where at least 15 to 20% of them are, but no more than really 40% should be.
Well, and, as a manager, I imagine it's looking at both, okay, are they exceeding visit goals? And if they are, if they're pacing ahead, then sure, keep doing, virtual visits. Absolutely, as long as everything's, the mix is right. But then ultimately it's the bottom line, right? Are they closing the gifts? There's the number of major gifts that they're supposed to close. And, maybe they're doing it over text message, it happens at Evertrue. So
hey, when numbers are good, all things seem to just work out, right?
Yeah.
There's not as many questions on it's when the numbers are down, they're like, why didn't this? So yeah, I think there's definitely much more openness to it, where if you had asked me the same question even 6 months ago, it would be no way. Personal visits, that's it, and so just the openness to start looking at virtual visits counting the same way is a big change for us.
Awesome. Hey, as somebody who works remote half the time, I love it. This is my job is virtual, but it's also very much real. So
no, exactly. Well, just to be able to use it as a tool, especially for our regional folks where they have some people in their portfolio that are not in those major cities, major markets. it's like they may travel somewhere once a year, and if they happen to miss that person that one time, then it's another year before they're able to see them. And so now utilize the virtual visits and be able to get in front of those people at any point.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think about like where I live, like I'm 75 miles from Boston. First off, I'm not on anyone's major gift radar, but if I was, like the likelihood of them like coming to see me is like pretty minimal. But hey, we can do Zoom chats easily. So,
well, I think too, like our team is really embracing already. Let's say it's a regional development officer, and they'll pair up with the academic unit development officer, and they can go, have that virtual visit with somebody or bring a dean on.
Oh yeah.
Whereas before it's like you're trying to coordinate that person coming to campus or have a dean travel out, and it's just so much more difficult. Now they really see that as added value where, hey, let's get the three of us together, jump on the call with that prospect or that person in the portfolio, and that's taken hold very quickly.
Yeah, and really speed that process up too. Like if you have to work with the dean, to figure out like what the gift is going to be, like then let's all do that together and not wait till we can all the travel arrangements and class schedules and other obligations line up. So yeah,
absolutely.
So I mean, you said just starting to get into the next phase, like President's Excellence Fund. Yes, still critical need, still got to finish out the year, and I'm sure there's going to be fundraising for that into fiscal year 21, just because there's going to be unforeseen needs among the student body. But like, how do you restart conversations that don't have anything to do with coronavirus and the impact there?
That's what we're grappling with, right? I mean, honestly, as we speak, it's like, okay, are we to that point now where we can make that shift of getting back to just normal, well, I say normal conversations, but can we get back to qualifying new people? Can we get back to just, okay, we were talking about this 6 months ago, this potential gift you wanted to make, is it time to revisit that? And I think we're just now getting to that comfort level where people have gotten past the initial shock of this coronavirus and what that's meaning and how it's affecting our jobs and the economy, and people have kind of settled into this routine that we're in for now. And so I think we're just now at that point where we can start to have those types of conversations. But even a week or two, I don't know if I would have given you that same answer. So it's changing so quickly right now, and it's very much a intuition, just feel. Maybe we're too soon, but I think we are getting to that point now where we can start to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I mean, I have some opinions, but like, how are you advising your team to start having those conversations?
Yeah, I think it's very much like now that they've reached out and they've made those solicitations, they've kind of been touching point. Let it have a little bit of time to air out, like give it a couple weeks, but then it is like, then it's time to start reaching out. And the thing is, we start our new fiscal year in 3 weeks from now. And so really that timing works well, where it's almost a fresh start, for lack of a better term, where it's kind of getting back to business as usual. We're going to have the same types of metrics and same types of expectations, just with, adding the virtual visit component to it. So we're still going to expect the same number of gifts to be closed. And so it is helping them understand, like, hey, we still need to continue business as usual now that we're to that point. And so it's been a progression to get there, but I think we're about at that point now.
Awesome. Actually, just to touch base on that, I know you're setting up metrics now, so maybe you don't have the answers. Like, do you expect same goals, or even taking goals to the next level, or are you thinking like, okay, we may have to scale back our expectations? What are you thinking about goals for the next year in terms of fundraising?
We're going into right now as if it's the same type of expectations, knowing that at least for the first quarter, we're going to have a slow or not as many gifts closing. But the overall yearly expectations we're going in as if it's a normal year at this point.
All right.
So, but we're open to. It's one of those things like normally when we set goals, it's like, all right, it is what it is. It's set now, but we know that we're more open to adjusting that this year. And like I said, we're going into the first quarter knowing we're gonna have all virtual visits, and then being able to adjust that the second quarter. Right now we're looking at it with the expectation that second quarter would start to be able to travel again, and so we have some of those, but it may be that we have to extend that a little bit further out. So there's more openness to adjusting where needed, but yeah, we are looking at kind of going the full year as like our normal goals.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. Like you aim high and be flexible. Like we didn't know like this was going to happen 8 weeks ago,
Exactly.
or 12 weeks ago or whatever. And we don't know what's going to happen 8, 12, 16 weeks from now either. So
yeah. And it's in everybody's, the industries that our donors work in have been affected in different ways. So some have been affected much more than others. So we know that will affect them, but some have been able to continue going strong in their roles and their careers. And so, I think there's people want to help where they can right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that is a good thing. Like, I think regardless of, where you're at, your job, your industry, your career, things like this that we've all been through as a country and as a world, put things in perspective, and you start to really realize like what's important and where you want to dedicate your resources and your time to. And if Baylor is on that list, as it is for many of your major gift donors, like there's good opportunity there to continue to grow those conversations and to support the university.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
Best of luck. Stay safe.
Thank you.